This is the Dreamers Podcast, where dreamers share their stories to inspire you. Now, join host Joe Pardo as he interviews a dreamer who's living their dreams.
Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pardo, and today I'm interviewing Teresa Hui. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did get it right.
Who is living her dream by being an entertainer. Welcome to the show, Teresa.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on. I know you have a super busy New York style thing going on, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come and be on the show.
Yeah, of course, it'd be fun. I figured, you're cool, and why not?
Well, thank you. Well, let's start by giving the audience some background about yourself.
All right. Well, I basically have loved performing or entertaining people since I was about one. I used to dance on restaurant tables when I was about 1 year, like a 1 year old, and I would sing. I sang before I could actually speak. Like, that's just always been something I wanted to do my entire life. And when I was in elementary school, I always fantasized about being a rock star. Always wanted to be like Jem, because she was really cool. And now they're making a Jem movie, which is really cool. It's already been cast, but now I'm way too old to play Jem anyway, or any of her peeps, like her entourage. But so I started performing when I was young, and I took piano lessons when I was 7. Unfortunately, like growing up in New York, my family was never very well off. So it was either Chinese school or piano lessons, and my mom figured, Chinese school sounds more, reasonable for this young one. And I ended up actually failing Chinese school twice. So I actually didn't do very well. So I really wish I kept on taking piano lessons, but I just kept on, doing my best to, keep the music in my heart. And, I've always been a ham ever since I was little, like baby pictures of me. I've always been like hamming it up. And I was doing plays in elementary school. And then when I was in high school, I started doing like the bigger productions. Like I went to Edward R. Murrow High School, and a lot of famous people went there, like Marissa Tomei, who was an Academy Award winner. Darren Aronofsky went there, MCA from the Beastie Boys, and countless other celebrities. So when I was at that school, I really felt like I belonged because everybody loved the arts. And I was like, oh my God, I can really major in this. It's just not something that, was a hobby, So then ever since high school, really, I've just been, doing my thing to, just living the dream, I guess. And I actually worked for the Walt Disney Company for 5 years immediately after college. I went to Westminster Choir College for school, and I majored in voice performance, classical. So I studied opera, and I minored in musical theater and in piano. Piano was a requirement. So if you majored in voice, you had to minor in piano. But I always loved performing, and I've always loved singing. I don't really sing opera as much anymore, but I really do miss that kind of singing. But once in a while, I'll do a show. I was in the New York Fringe Festival last year, and that got a lot of good press. That made it into the New York Times, the cover of the New York Times art section last year, which was really, really cool to see my face on there. And just like random stuff throughout. So going back, I go off on tangents. Before, I did work at the World of Disney for 5 years, and I was making dreams come true over there. And not as a performer, actually, but so during the time that I was working at the World of Disney in New York, I would do cabarets on the side just to keep up with the performing. And I actually did one with my fiance, who I actually met while I was working at the World of Disney, and Jerry Skids. We actually did a cabaret together in the city, so that was really, really fun. Unfortunately, the store ended up closing because of high rent and stuff, so then I was unemployed. But immediately after I was unemployed that week, a friend of mine who was working for a fashion designer actually said, hey, I work for this designer and they're looking for models for their print campaign. And I never thought of myself as a model. And I was like, model? What the hell are you talking about? And she's like, just submit your headshot and resume anyway. So I was like, okay. So I submitted my headshot and resume, and I got called in for a casting, and I was like, okay, this is weird. And I just remembered I went in, we had to try on different types of shirts. There was this company called Rebecca and Drew Manufacturing, and it was actually at the location. I tried on a bunch of different shirts, and whichever one fit me best. It was a company that creates shirts based on bra sizes instead of like regular like fitted like sizes. So I was in there. I just remembered being in there in the fitting room with this girl who was also at the casting. This gorgeous, like 5'9", like perfect, like size 0 or size 2 model. I was like, oh my God, like, why am I here? This girl is beautiful and I'm here in the same room as this girl. But I was like, whatever. So then I went in front of the two designers, Rebecca and Drew. And Drew, he took the photos, and Rebecca was there kind of like watching to see, like, you know, like just kind of observing to see who she liked. And then she said to me, that shirt fits you perfectly. And it didn't occur to me like, oh, that's a good thing. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I was at this audition with this really beautiful girl and I'm there, you know, like non-model. And so I didn't think anything of it. And then later on that night, I got an email from Rebecca and Drew saying, congratulations, we would love to have you as part of our print campaign. And I was just completely floored, and I could not believe that I just booked my very first modeling gig, like just 1 week after losing my job at the World of Disney. So ever since then, like, you know, like everything's basically took off. But right before then, a few days after my job ended, I bought a ukulele, and I was like, well, if I have all this time, might as well learn how to play a new instrument. So I decided to play the ukulele. And I mean, I have to thank that magical ukulele for basically being the catalyst to the start of my career in the entertainment industry, like my legit start to my career.
That's really great that you found inspiration in a ukulele. What ukulele did you get?
I actually got some cheapy $40 ukulele at the Guitar Center. It was actually really, it was the only ukulele they actually had at that time. But I was like, I am determined to get a ukulele, or maybe it was the cheapest one. So it was $40. I was like, $40, like, I don't have a job, but that's okay. Like, I'll get an unemployment or something like that. So I bought it, and I just learned something. And now I have a Lani Kai. I actually upgraded after learning, but I just needed something cheap to learn on. So that's what I started off with.
So what does entertaining mean to you?
Making people feel something. Whether you make them laugh, make them cry, make them feel funny, like whatever, just like making others feel something because you're doing something, you're creating art. And that for me is what entertaining is, just like making people feel.
So what would you say inspires you other than your awesome ukulele?
Well, what inspires me is my dad, he passed away over 16 years ago. And I remember when I first started learning guitar, I started learning guitar when I was in junior high school. I actually have kind of a sad story. When I was in elementary school, my ultimate dream, during the time I wanted to be a rock star, I wanted to be in the Glee Club. And I got a call back, and I was like, oh my God, I got a call back for the Glee Club, and, I just thought they were so cool. They got to sing show tunes and Les Mis. And I was like, oh my goodness, I want to be part of this so badly. And on the day of callbacks, I got sick. So I had no range, and I ended up not getting in, and I was absolutely devastated. I was like, oh man, I guess I can't sing. I'm not a singer. I should never ever sing again. And sometimes I would go request to go on like a bathroom break, but I would just really walk by the chorus room just to listen to the Glee Club sing and wish that I was part of that. And it was just always really like upsetting. I was like, oh, I wish I was part of that, but I'm obviously, not good enough to be a singer. When I was in junior high school, I took up the guitar. And I remember my teacher back then, Mr. Brennan, he really inspired me to like want to play and he was really awesome. And also like he was a big I had a big crush on him too. So then like I learned how to play guitar, and I picked it up really quick. And I remembered when I started playing, my dad, he was a really big Elvis fan. So I mean, one day like he saw me practicing and he's like, oh, do you know rock and roll? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you know who Elvis is? It's like, I know who Elvis is. And then he's like, oh, that's good. My dad passed away over 16 years ago. He unfortunately had cancer, but I remembered like during like his last years, he was so happy to see that I was playing guitar, and that actually inspired me to keep going. I actually ended up winning the top instrumentalist award in my junior high school, because like my dad was so proud of me. I was like, you know what, if my dad's this proud of me, I'm going to keep going. And so I was the top instrumentalist at my school. That's what, my dad, like, he wanted to be a rock star, like, but he really wasn't good at it. Like, there's this great photo of him that I have that from when he was 17, and he's looking like he's rocking a guitar, but he didn't actually know how to play it, but he just thought it was so cool. And, anytime like I get to perform, I'm like, you know what, my dad would be so proud of me. That took me all the way to the Apollo Theater, where I ended up actually placing third at amateur night for Showtime at the Apollo. And that was when I bought my new ukulele, my Lani Kai tenor ukulele that I upgraded to. And so, and like every performance, like any victory, I dedicate that to my dad.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about that, about your dad, but it's nice to hear that he was very inspiring to you and supportive of you. How did the rest of your family receive your dream of being an entertainer?
Well, when I went to college, I went to a very expensive music school. I went to Westminster Choir College, which was unbelievable. And I mean, I don't regret it at all because I had some amazing, amazing opportunities. But before then, my mom, I love my mom, but she was like, you could probably make more money from singing on the subway. And I graduated 10 years ago, and she's right, because I owe tons of money. Like, a music education is very, very, very expensive. And you basically get like no money, like almost no money when you perform or when you start out performing. But, like I just love being around all these passionate individuals. My sisters, like, they always supported me. Like my mom, the thing is, my mom, she always was supportive. She would come to see me in all my shows, any of my plays and musicals. And my grandma, who's no longer here, like she also would go. So anytime I did a show, like me, like my little sisters, my mom, my grandma, they would all like schlepped over to wherever I was performing and come see me perform. So obviously, they were always very supportive.
So how did your recent dreams of being an entertainer come about versus, when you grew up being a kid and you just kind of naturally wanted to ham everything up?
It was losing my job. Losing my job really was the best thing that had ever happened to me. I mean, I was with the Walt Disney Company for over 5 years, which was great because I ended up getting my 5-year pin, and I was like, I accomplished something here. But the one thing was, because I was working a full-time job and, had benefits and stuff like that, I didn't want to leave. And so the thing is, if the store was still here, I would still be there now, and I would have gotten my 10-year plaque this year, which would have been great. But the thing is, 5 whole years would have gone by in addition, and I would not be anywhere performance-wise. And that had always been a dream of mine ever since I was a little kid. But I really do thank whatever company that ended up shutting down the store because of the high rent, because that really helped me out. And I was like, you know what, I bought that ukulele, and after that, I was just like, you know what, I have all this free time, let's do it. Let's just go all out and let's do it. Let's be a performer.
So what steps did you take to get started?
When I first started, I booked that modeling gig. That was the first thing I did. And then I decided to go and learn more about TV and film. So I did some extra work. I did extra work on my first time going back into extra work, because I did extra work one time a few years before then. But I did extra work for Gossip Girl. That was a pretty awful experience. But I mean, I got paid. I got to watch the principal actors work. And anytime I would do extra work, or, as background talent, as the savvy extras in New York call it, just to make it sound hoity-toity and stuff. Like, the thing is, even though it's not the most glamorous job, it was always a learning experience. Anytime I would step foot on set, I would watch the principal actors. I would see what they would do, and I just did a lot of learning. My first year doing this, after realizing my dream, I did a lot of extra work, and I learned so much, and I met such amazing people throughout the time I did it. And it was because of the extra work, making contacts. I was able to book some principal stuff after that, but it was I did a lot of that was just being on set and getting hands-on experience and stuff like that, and just watching people and learning. So after doing some extra stuff, I was submitting myself for principal work. I signed up for all the casting websites that all my fellow background friends were telling me about. So I ended up booking some pretty big things. Even in my first year, I actually got this Macy's gig for Macy's.com with Clinton Kelly. And that was really cool because basically it was a makeover thing, like how he does or how he did on What Not to Wear. Honestly, I really didn't know too much about him, but I was like, oh, cool. I get to be on the Macy's website. I booked at other more things, and I was non-union. I was working as a non-union actor at that time. And with all the background work I did, there's this thing. In order to become a member of the Screen Actors Guild, you would need to get 3 SAG waivers, which means that basically you get hired as a union worker that day. You're basically working as union. And also back then, now with the unions, the entertainment unions, the film and television unions, you have SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and AFTRA, American Federation Television and Radio Artists. Those were 2 separate unions. So at that point, within the first 2 months of me booking stuff, I got my first principal audition. It was actually a singing audition for the Onion News Network. I ended up not booking it, but they booked me for basically a featured background show, with something involving Oprah or something like that. So that was my first union waiver. That was for AFTRA. And so I was like, oh, cool. I'm working as union. Then within 8 months of doing film and television stuff, I ended up booking my SAG waivers, my Screen Actors Guild waivers. The first one I booked from going online to one of the casting websites, casting networks, and they were looking for Asians for the film Premium Rush, and who would be willing to get rained on. They had movie rain. I submitted, and I got called. I was like, oh my goodness, I get my first SAG waiver, and it was it's just such a good feeling, when you're working as non-union and then you get the opportunity to do union work. It's pretty awesome. So that I got that. A couple of months after, they had this festival, kind of almost like a convention. It's like a convention for actors, and it's called ActorFest. And they had all these different casting directors there. There were opportunities to audition in front of casting directors. Grant Wolfley Casting, the casting people who had booked me for Premium Rush, they were there. So I decided, why don't I wait in line and update my file, and I can thank them for booking me for SAG work. So I got up there, and there were 2 casting directors there. I went up there and said, hey, you gave me my first SAG waiver. That's awesome. Thank you. And they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. So you're not union? And I was like, yeah, I'm not union. And they're like, oh, did you hear about this other film? Because we're looking for people for, I think it was for Safe, that film with Jason Statham, and what's the other one? The Sitter with Jonah Hill. And I was like, well, I didn't know about them. And basically they had put me down to be considered for SAFE, to get a SAG waiver for SAFE and for the sitter. So I ended up getting boom, boom, like SAG waiver number 2, SAG waiver number 3. And then I got to work like in the next couple of months after that. Like I ended up working on those 2 films. So I got my 3 SAG waivers within basically like not even a year of doing this whole TV and film thing. So I became SAG eligible within my first year of doing TV and film, which a lot of people like. I actually met a woman who had been doing this for 10 years and she never became eligible for SAG. And I was like, wow, it's like, I mean, it's either I'm really lucky or I work really hard, but I wasn't quite sure. But whatever it was, I was very grateful. I became eligible, but I held on to that eligibility for actually 18 months, and I'll explain the reason. But during the time that when I was doing the steps to get to where I am now, I kept on booking more principal work. I actually stopped really doing any background work because I wanted to focus on like really acting and booking principal roles. So I had done some off Broadway shows during that time and taken some classes, just learned more, met casting directors, met agents. I started freelancing with a manager and an agent within a year, within 1 year's time as well. So I worked my butt off, but it paid off because within 1 year I already had representation. Like it was freelance, but I had somebody like who was able to send me out for stuff. So during that time, for fast forward 18 months, they merged the 2 actor unions. They merged SAG and they merged AFTRA. So they made it sag-aftra. I didn't want to join SAG yet. I joined AFTRA because I ended up booking a principal for a commercial. It was a PSA, and it starred Jane Lynch from Glee. And it was actually I got called in directly by the director because during the time that I was still learning in my whole like working background work and stuff like that, the director who booked me on my first non-union, non-paid commercial within the first couple of weeks in which I started doing background stuff, it was actually a commercial in Spanish. It was on Spanish television. He called me in for this because I worked with him about like 3 times on no paying or low paying gigs. But I was just honestly really happy to be there. So when I first got my check from doing my first union principal job, I was as happy as I was when I worked the first time for him not getting paid at all. So, during that time, I had to join the union AFTRA because it was an AFTRA gig. The merger happened, so I became a member of the Screen Actors Guild as well. The reason why I didn't want to join Screen Actors Guild yet was because there was a lot of non-union work, especially in commercials. In New York City, there are so many commercials that are non-union. That is the reason why. So I just didn't want to lose out on work. And right now I am union. I'm SAG-AFTRA. And it's tough. But I've still been able, I'm working my way up and I've gotten some really good auditions. It took about 2 years for me to get to a full union status with the 2 major TV and film unions. But I ended up doing it, and here I am now.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's what we do here. It's still, this journey is still continuing. Because I'm union, there's not quite as much union work as there is non-union work. But, now because I am SAG-AFTRA, I am eligible to audition for these big gigs. I booked my first lead in a SAG indie film a couple of years ago, which I was just floored. I could not believe it because it was my first lead audition. And I just went in thinking, oh, I'm not going to get this. What are you talking about? And then I ended up getting it, and I just couldn't believe it. I'd taken all these classes, and like everything had just paid off. And my manager, Kim Jago of KL Jago Talent, she actually got me that, and I was just really, really happy. Like Kim and Fabio, who's her assistant, like they both like the co-owner. Well, Kim is the owner, and he is I guess the co-manager of the whole thing. They got me the audition, and I'm just so grateful. And I had such a blast filming that. We ended up flying to Chicago and to Arizona to do this feature film, and I got to play a physicist with two teenage boys. It's very, very artistic film called The Unity of All Things. And it's in a bunch of different languages throughout the film. Like, because there's Cantonese spoken in there, there's Japanese spoken, there's English, and there's Spanish. It had its U.S. premiere at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which was sold out. It was actually so sold out that some people were willing to stand in the back of the theater to watch it, which was pretty cool to see my first feature film as a lead, get that kind of reception. And it actually made its world premiere in Switzerland a couple of years back, which I didn't get to attend, but that was really, really cool. And that was that. And but during the time that when I was SAG eligible, before I became an actual union member, I was working as a featured background actor on this film called That's What She Said, starring Anne Heche, Alia Shawkat from Arrested Development, and Carrie Preston, who is one of the stars of True Blood. She was the director, and honestly, I really didn't know who she was at that time. People were like, "Oh, she the director for this, she's famous." And I'm like, I don't have cable, so I didn't know who she was, but she was really cool, and we were on set one day, and I was supposed to be a hairdresser, I guess. Like, I was supposed to be a hairdresser who's like sweeping up and closing up, while Anne Heche's character is basically like begging to come in with like her best friend or whatever, her character's best friend, like played by Marcia DeBonis, who's amazing. She was also a casting director, and I'm supposed to kick them out. Like, I accept a bribe is what I was supposed to be, like the character I was supposed to play. However, like somehow, I don't know what happened, but one of the production assistants came up to me and said, "Oh, we're going to switch things around. We're actually going to have you cut the hair," meaning that I was going to be now the hairdresser who cuts the hair of one of the principal actors. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to cut hair. It was Marcia DeBonis's hair that I had to cut, but it wasn't really her hair; it was a hairpiece. So then I did a few takes, and I got like a lot of screen time. And then during the shoot, Carrie Preston asked us, "Okay, who's SAG?" And none of us were SAG because this was a non-union job for us. We were cast because we were non-union. She was basically going to give somebody a line, which means that would automatically make us principal, and then we would end up getting paid the principal rate. And one of the writers, Kelly Overby, she was also one of the stars of the film. She was like, Carrie was asking which one of us spoke Chinese. And well, all three of us did. We're all supposed to be like Chinese hairdressers. And then Kelly said to Carrie, "Oh, Teresa speaks Chinese." And it's like all three of us raised our hands when she asked us, like when Carrie asked us if any of us spoke Chinese. So I ended up getting a line. My first speaking, this basically became my first speaking role in a SAG feature film with all these stars in it. And I went from like getting paid $0 as a featured background actor to getting upgraded to a principal cast member, like all within a couple of hours time. And I was just on cloud nine. Like it was just incredible. I just could not believe it. So like that was my first SAG credit. The film ended up going to the Sundance Film Festival, and it screened here at some film festivals, including the Soho International Film Festival. And it was really, really cool to get to go there and see all these stars there. I got invited to the cast and crew screening, and that was incredible. That was so, so cool. And like when I got there, I just thought, when I see Carrie, I'm just going to say, "Hey, I'm Teresa. I was in your film." But, when I was there, I saw her and she said, "Oh, hi, Teresa." And I was like, "Oh my God, Carrie Preston." This, and she ended up winning an Emmy Award this year, by the way, or last year. So this now Emmy Award winner knew me by first name because I was like, oh wait, I was in her film. She invited me. Because like everybody was like basically she handpicked to attend the cast and crew screening, and Carrie Preston's husband is actually Emmy Award winner Michael Emerson, who was one of the stars of Lost, my favorite show ever, and so during the screening, I got to sit between Michael Emerson and the director of photography, Bill Clare, who worked on the film, and I was like, oh my God, somebody please pinch me. I cannot believe where I am right now. So that was just unreal, and that was unbelievable, and that was all within like 1 year's time. So like if you work really hard and you just like take every opportunity that you can take, sometimes you might end up sitting next to an Emmy Award winner at a screening to watch yourself on the big screen.
While you're on the topic, why don't you tell us what other movies you've been in?
Let's see, I was in a film called 10 Buck Baton, and that's an indie film, and that ended up going to all these different film festivals, and it actually won a bunch of awards, like for best narrative in like the New York, LA Film Festival, and like lots of other film festivals, and that was really, really cool. The other film that I was in, The Unity of All Things, that's the one where I was the lead in, that went all over the world, to Switzerland, to Vancouver, to New York, California, like everywhere, and that was really, really awesome. And I've just been like in a bunch of other things. I was in the flash mob for Friends with Benefits, and I got to dance right behind Justin Timberlake, which was kind of cool. And I got to be in the dance scene also in Grand Central Station. I actually had to go in. They had an open call for that, and they were looking for people to dance and like basically like, just like freestyle dance to this hip hop song they played. And I was like, oh, I can't dance, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. And even though I am not a dancer at all, I just went for it. And they ended up calling me, and I got to dance behind Justin Timberlake, and that was really, really cool. And I've been in other random things that I can't quite remember right now. But those are like basically the big ones that I've done. I've done some college humor sketches, and I have a web series that I'm working on right now called These Three Girls, that I'm working, and I'm one of the three girls, along with two other very talented actresses, Joyce Lau. Oh God, she's gonna kill me for butchering her last name, Lauagan, Lauagan. Oh my God, she's gonna kill me. And Maciel Hernandez. So those are and then my fiance Jerry Skids, he actually directed the first minisodes, and he also edited the minisode, so he will be our editor for the remainder of the series, which is really sweet. And it's been a bunch of things. I would probably have to check my IMDb if you want me to check my IMDb.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We can include that in the show notes.
Okay.
So what roadblocks have you hit along the way?
Basically, when I became SAG-AFTRA, there weren't as many opportunities for union actors, and also the competition is fierce. I mean, one of the auditions I went to, one of the actors I was reading with, he was in Platoon. So I mean, that's the caliber of actors and talent that I am working with nowadays. And I just, anytime that I have these big auditions and I see, oh, this person was on Broadway and we are at the same audition, or this person was in a big Hollywood blockbuster and they're at the same audition as me. I mean, it's like a lot of like, okay, like calm down. You are here for a reason. You belong here. So it's a lot of like that whole, like a mental game, basically, just believing, okay, you are meant to do this, you are meant to be here, and you should not be intimidated by somebody who was in an Academy Award winning film, because you know what, you are just as awesome as they are.
That's a really great way of looking at it, and a humbling way to look at it, and I'm sure that they, for the most of them, probably feel the same way, that it's just an award, and it just as easily could have been anybody else that starred in some movie that got that award. because there's so much more that goes into it than just the actor themselves. It's the writing, it's the editing, it's everything from soup to nuts. It could have been anybody. It just happened to be them, and they happened to do their part really well. But if bad editing is in a movie, it shines through pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like now I just watch films. Well, being engaged to an editor, I just view films in a much different way than I did, and just like seeing behind the scenes stuff. Like I know what makes a good film now, and before I would just watch things and be like, oh, this is entertaining. But now it's like I look at it with a much more critical eye than I did back then.
So could you share a favorite memory?
Favorite memory of mine would be packing up my bags and getting on the plane to go to Chicago, knowing that I was flying to film a movie. And I was like, oh my God, this is really happening to me. This is happening to me. This is awesome. Like we got to do it again, like when we went to Arizona to film for the same film. And I was like, wow, this is pretty sweet. And, like getting to see the finished product on the big screen, getting to see my role, like, we had worked so hard on for over a year. We worked on this film, like filming it. And just to see the finished product was just unbelievable. And just the reception we got was great. I mean, a sold out audience at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. That was amazing. And my mom was there, my fiance was there, and my sisters were there. And just getting to share that moment with my family, it was incredible. It was priceless.
So is there any parts of your dream that haven't quite worked out yet?
I mean, right now, I still would love to book an episodic, a TV show. So I've had quite like a few auditions for some big shows, and I haven't booked any of them yet, but hopefully I will soon. I haven't booked any big Hollywood blockbusters, though I did get called in to audition for Iron Man 3 as a supporting role, and that was amazing. I didn't book it, but knowing that they wanted me in their casting office, because basically with these casting directors, they are seeing thousands of headshots and resumes, and they're only picking maybe 12 people to be seen to get the chance to audition for the role. So to be part of that, to get called in, that already it's a victory. However, like the next step is booking those big roles. I'm still working and still working at it. So hopefully within the next year, I'll book my first episodic.
So what do your dreams for the future look like?
Continue to work on my craft. I've been taking some on-camera classes again, and just trying to fine-tune everything. Just because you should always be training, because it's a muscle, and you have to keep on working it out to keep it in shape. So I want to continue to study with really good acting teachers, on-camera teachers, and I would love to, book a major feature film or a television show. And my ultimate goal, though, one day is to be on Broadway. That's been a goal of mine since I was a little girl, and I think once you make it on Broadway, you know that you've really made it. But nowadays, it's instead of how back in the day you had to be a legit Broadway actor before you hit film and TV. Now you have to be established within the film and TV world, because you have to be able to sell tickets, and you have to have that kind of fan base. So they're not just casting an unknown. Gone are the days of, the unknowns taking over Broadway and off Broadway. You have to be a name now if you want to end up making it on Broadway. So one day I intend on being on a Broadway stage, singing my heart out, or acting my heart out, or both.
Do you want to talk about how hard you have to work just to be able to keep these dreams going, as far as, keeping the bills at bay?
It's really not easy to be an actor. I currently work 2 jobs, and I have 2 more that are basically on the way. Basically, I work the actor survival jobs. I work as a street promoter in Times Square, so I promote Broadway and off-Broadway shows to patrons in Times Square, the busiest area in all of New York City. And I also work as a clue master for this really popular interactive escape game experience called Escape the Room NYC. So that's like, I work those two jobs, and those are both actor friendly, and everybody else is an actor. So in case I have any auditions come up, any bookings, since everybody understands, like, people are more than willing to help you out. It's like, oh, I have this audition, can you please cover for me? And they're like, oh, that's fine. And if anybody else has that, like, I would return the favor and stuff like that. So I work multiple jobs, and I'm also currently training to be a tour guide in New York City. So to be an official New York City expert. So I'm studying up on that. I have to get my tour guide license, which is basically the equivalent of getting your real estate license. So there's a lot that goes goes into that. It's not very easy to become a tour guide, but I'm planning on doing that. So then I'll end up having 4 jobs, because there are 2 different companies that want to work with me in the tour guide industry. So, and those are also actor friendly jobs as well. And that's the thing, when you're an actor, and you're a performer, you cannot work a 9 to 5, because there's no way, unless you have like a really, really cool boss who's willing to let you leave in the middle of the day to go to an audition. And whenever you book something like a TV show or like a film, and it's like, oh, I can't work today, they're like, okay, that's cool. I mean, it's really rare that happens with a 9 to 5er. But, with my current jobs, if I'm like, oh, I have a commercial audition today, like, is that cool if I take off? And they're like, oh, yeah, like, well, like, I'll cover you. So that's how I keep my bills paid by working multiple jobs.
So is there any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Basically, if you're doing something that you don't love, like, I mean, we have one life, like, why do it? If you feel so passionately about something, like, you will do everything you can to make it work. Being a performer is not easy at all. And, some jobs, like, I might end up getting a gig that pays me nothing, or I might have a job that pays me a lot. You have to do what you need to do. And, I know that I'm never financially stable. Like, I live paycheck to paycheck. But the one thing that, like, a 9 to 5 job, like, if I were to work one, like, that would not give me happiness. And right now I'm living my dreams out. I am getting to go to these amazing auditions. I've gotten to work with amazing directors. I even got a chance to work on a music video for the band, Breaking Benjamin, and the director for it, he actually directed a bunch of like Britney Spears music videos, and like he worked with Paul McCartney and all these people, and that barely paid me anything. But I got this amazing opportunity to work with this like very, very famous director, and like, it's tough. It's sometimes you will never get called. You might not get called for like a month or months. And you just got to keep on plugging away at it. You got to keep on hustling. And this is definitely not a career for those who cannot handle rejection, because basically, as a performer, you go into an audition expecting to get rejected. I mean, that's horrible. Like, that's the nature of the business. But the thing is, like, you go in, you do your thing, and then when you walk out the door, you just forget about it and think about impressing some other folks. You just keep on living your life that way, like, where you just like forget about your audition and you just go ahead and do your best, and you just keep on plugging away. I mean, this is the happiest I've ever been, and more happy than when I had a full-time job with health benefits, because one day it will end up paying off. I've already gotten some amazing opportunities, and I would not trade any of this for the world. I mean, it's tough. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, and not for those who can't handle it. But if you believe in something, if you have a dream, just go for it. We have one life. Just go for it. Just do it. You're going to end up being a much happier person in the end.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Teresa. I really appreciate it. You definitely had some inspiring stuff to share, and I hope to have you on the show again in about a year, and we'll check up and see how you're doing with your career.
Okay, I would love to. Well, thank you for having me.
Is there any Facebook, Twitters, websites you'd like to plug?
Yeah. You can check out my website at www.teresa teresahui.com. And you can also check out my IMDb. I have an IMDb page. So that's imdb.me, what is it, / I don't know internet slogan, logos, jargon, I don't know. You can find me on IMDb as well. Also, check out my web series that is currently in the making, These Three Girls, which is on the YouTube, These Three Girls TV, that you'll find on YouTube. And I also have a YouTube channel as well. So you can find me, just type in my name on YouTube and it'll pop right up.
I'll put them all in the show notes. All right, well, thank you very much again for coming on the show, and I hope to talk to you soon.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.